Hey there. Welcome to the Flute 360 podcast. I'm Dr. Heidi K. Begay, and I'm a flutist, educator, coach, and podcaster. My God-given mission is to serve you. I am passionate about guiding you, the modern-day flutist, to discover your unique voice on and off the stage. The goal of this podcast is to help you thrive, both as an artist and as a musicpreneur. Go ahead and grab your espresso drink, your favorite notepad, and let's get to it. Today's episode 316 is titled, A Flutist's Guide to Authentic Branding, Winning Clients by Showing Up Authentically with Demitris Maddox. Hey Flute 360er, listen to this. Flutists in the Flute 360 Accelerator program are transforming their lives, leaving toxic jobs, discovering their unique flute voice, showing up authentically online, and gaining the confidence to empower their students and themselves. Our next live session is Saturday, January 25th, 2025, from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Central Time, featuring the inspiring Liz Walker. Through masterclasses, masterminds, and pocket coaching, you'll have everything you need to take your playing and career to the next level. Click the link in the show notes to join now. Spots are limited. Your transformation starts here. Let's make it happen. Thank you so much for being here, Demitris, and I'm so ecstatic to sit down and pick your brain about branding and online presence. I think the fact that you reached out with a very genuine email a few months ago really caught my attention. And the fact that you wanted to share your expertise about creating an online presence for my Flute 360ers, I was really blown away just by your generosity and how you packaged together that email. It was super clear. It was just like right to the point, but I felt your personality and your authenticity come through that email. And I wholeheartedly believe that. So I just wanted you to know that because I don't know if you get that feedback from other podcasters or other musicpreneurs, but that's the sense that I got from you now that you are a new music friend in my life. And I just wanted to put that out there.
I really appreciate you sharing that with me. I don't hear that very often from other, musicpreneurs or podcast hosts. So the fact that you took the time on this episode to actually mention that, it really means the world to me. I honestly believe in being open, honest, and transparent. And I'm really happy that the authenticity and the wanting to share value and wanting to help actually came through in an email, because sometimes even me, I struggle to get how I want to be perceived and how I want to feel out through words and actually typing it in. So I'm really happy that you were able to feel that on the other end of receiving that email from me. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Oh, that's amazing. So I wasn't expecting to actually go down this rabbit hole, but since we're here, can you just play with me for a little bit?
Absolutely.
So because I felt that authenticity through an email, I don't see that a lot. And you're correct. It's hard to translate your energy and vibe and personality in a black and white text. That's a challenge. But because it popped out to me, I'm just curious. To me, from my perspective, it seemed very intentional on your end. And if so, how do you go about that? How did you go about that? So that way you can maybe offer a gem to my listeners, because I'm always telling people, knock on that digital door, send an email, send a text, right? And maybe, just maybe, they're like cringing and they're like, Heidi, but an email feels so formal and it feels so icky and it feels like, ooh, I don't want to hit send. But if you're coming from this authentic place in context, I didn't know Demitris before that email, but a lot can be said, a lot can be shared through the black and white. And so I want people to feel encouraged to hit send, right? When they're wondering like, oh my gosh, this feels formal, or if they don't want to hit send a lot of the times because they're worried about bothering people. They're worried about their authentic self maybe not coming through. So what advice would you give to said person if they are wanting to make that connection?
That is an excellent question. So the advice that I would give anybody looking to digitally door knock on anybody's door is the number one thing. Now, I'm going to be speaking obviously from the perspective of a person who has sent an email to you to try to get on a podcast, but this kind of concept can apply to whatever digital door you're trying to knock on. So the first thing you have to realize is that the email is not about you. You don't really want to be talking about yourself. And I'm actually peeling back the curtain and letting you in on how I approached you. So um, you don't want to have the email be about you and yourself. So wherever possible, you want to remove the I's and the my's and the me. And you want to be speaking to you and yours. So whoever you're speaking to, you want to make sure that whatever and however you're writing is speaking to that. Instead of saying something like, I found your podcast and I love listening to it. That's very I centric. You would change it to something like, loved listening to your podcast. And now that little thing is now about you and your podcast. So that's the first thing I would say. The second thing is you have to think about what the person receiving the email is looking for. In your case, I felt that you were potentially looking for new podcast guests, potentially. And I wanted to make it as easy for you to say yes. So what are things that I did? One, I went in there and I came up with an angle that I thought would help you and help your listeners so that you didn't have to do that work. I came up with potential speaking points so that you didn't have to do that work. So when your Flute 360 members and listeners are listening and they are approaching other people, think about what that person that you're contacting is looking for. Now, potentially, let me just pull something out of a hat. Let's say you were contacting a local music store who doesn't have flute lessons already, and you were trying to see if, maybe you can be their referral partner, right? What is something that music store owner is looking for? They're looking for potentially, have you taught this in the past? Do you have referrals? Do you have a way that they can contact you seamlessly and effortlessly? So if you package all that and present that to this now music store owner, it will be a lot easier for them to say yes. So to sum that all up, the way that you need to think about it is don't make it about you. So that takes all the pressure off of you. The second thing is you need to go in there and you need to have it be about them. And the third thing is that the way that you bring your personality is don't be scared. This is the biggest one, to write like you speak. So however you write, if you have some sort of slang that you might use that is fun and funny, if you speak it and it comes out correct, like let's say you have your text to speech option on your phone and you're speaking into your phone, that's another good way to write the email, is it should sound like you. And that's kind of how I would suggest that you make your email or writing feel connected to you.
Yes. Not that I will, but we could wrap up the episode with that answer right there. And guys, the shortest episode of all time, because Demitris just laid out 3 amazing nuggets. Run with it. Go.
Thank you so much.
Genius. Yes. Especially the last portion of maybe do talk to text. Because when you said that, I was like, you know what? That's really smart, because how you speak from maybe yourself to a partner, yourself to your students, yourself to a friend could be a lot just more chilled of who you really are compared to when you sit down and it feels formal, like, oh, now I'm writing. You know what I mean?
100%.
Yeah. And when you said that, I was like, oh my gosh, like my listeners know that I say the slang or just the phrase, oh, shoot, a lot.
Yeah.
So when I get really excited about something like, oh, shoot.
Yeah.
I can imagine that phrase being weaved into like a newsletter, like the copy of a newsletter or a social media post, like, oh, shoot. Or, and then people would know like, oh, that's Heidi writing it because she says that all the time. So that last nugget was so genius. I love it. You were going to say something. I apologize.
One, like the oh shoot can absolutely be weaved into, and any kind of thing that you normally say can absolutely be weaved into the messaging that you normally use. And then that's how you make your personality stand out, both, in an email that you might be sending out, both in the content that you're putting out on social media, and also both in the website content that you have on your website. So it's all about making who you are internally come out externally. And the talk to text feature is a great jumping off point to start any kind of writing that you're going to do.
Oh, yeah, I love that. And the reason why I wanted to sit in this moment, it seems a little not silly. It's not silly to me because there are so many gems that you broke down in that answer for the first question. And somebody could hear this and go, Heidi, you're being silly asking, like, breaking down Demitris's first email to you. Like, why are you, do you know what I mean? Like, why are you pointing out something that's like so obvious or so simple? And the reason why I am is because it ties into today's topic, your online presence, how you show up, that being magnetic, being a magnetic person that people want to be drawn to you and to your work so you can create value and an impact in your community. And it starts with perhaps an initial email. And how do you know what I mean? And how do you package that together? And sometimes these things aren't talked about in music business school or music school in general. And then when somebody like you or me, like a musicpreneur coach, goes out to our people and we say, knock on those digital doors, and people are kind of like deer in headlights, like, well, what do you mean? Who am I writing this to? What does the copy look like? How do I show up? And sometimes we get in our heads and our thoughts a little too much.
And that's really the thing, is the person who's receiving this email is a person just like you, so they're no better, they're no worse, they're just like you. So if at the end of the day, when you're reaching out to somebody, you're not necessarily reaching out to, let's say, a business, you're reaching out to another person because there's another person who's actually going to be reading that email. So just as long as you keep in mind that it's not about you, it's about them, that makes writing it so much easier. As long as you can keep in mind that you want to have your authentic voice to come out, then it's going to be okay. And even if they do say no, that is a possibility. Like, you could have said no. You don't get what you don't ask for, and you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. So what's the worst thing that's going to happen is they're going to say no, and then you're going to be okay, and you're going to have an amazing day. It's going to be fine.
Yeah, I love that. That's like one of my 10 soapboxes on this show is show up, show up. Yeah. And also the reason why I'm unpacking this initial email too is because this is applicable to anything that you want to ask. Like you just said, you're not going to receive anything that you don't ask for. So in 6 years of the Flute 360 podcast, I've been so blessed beyond measure. And I'm saying this so humbly, to work with over 30 different companies. Why? Because I knocked on a door. And
100%.
Very similar to how I packaged those corporate sponsorship initial emails was very similar to how you wrote me. You made it so easy. You said, hey, here, and you painted this picture. Here are the topics I'm interested in. This is the value that I want to bring your people. And everything you said can be applied to the flutist going out and asking for corporate sponsorships, asking to set up a concert gig schedule, asking for an audition, asking for an interview at said job. It is limitless. It is limitless of the possibilities when people come together and build relationships. The possibilities are endless from that interaction and building out really genuine relationships.
Exactly. It is a skill and a muscle that can sustain you your entire teaching career and your entire life, being able to authentically ask for what you want. Everything that you want is just an ask away, and that's what I truly believe. And it might feel nerve-wracking and you might be a little nervous, but truth be told, at the end of the day, it's just an email or a phone call that's being sent out. And I know it might be a little bit scary, but truthfully, everything that we want is on the other side of our comfort zone. Because if we didn't want it, it would already be kind of inside of our comfort zone. So I would challenge anybody to stretch themselves just a little bit, to do something that's a little bit uncomfortable. Send that email, make that phone call, make that connection, because you never know what that's going to unlock for you.
Perfectly said. Well, I will get off my tangent of the initial email, or I can easily be in this place for the rest of the 20 minutes.
For sure.
And I want to pick your brain on a couple other topics. Sure. And so speaking of that initial email, you made it so easy for me when you said, I can talk about these 5 top topics or whatever the email structure was. And the topic that really caught my eye for my people was converting your teaching style into a magnetic online presence. It was magnetic to me. That title in of itself caught my eye because my Flute 360 listeners, a good 50% of them are flute instructors. They are building out studios. They want to have a place in their community to bring students to their home, etc. And so coming into this online world, some of them may be from the older generation where online internet presence isn't, again, something that was taught back when they were in school. And they are getting really brave and really courageous and saying, okay, let me tackle this. Let me come into this place. But how do I show up? Because there are so many flute teachers out there. They feel like the market is overly saturated. Who am I? How am I going to stand out? And I feel like today's talk is going to debunk some of these falsehoods that we tell ourselves.
100%. I do want to give your listeners, though, a quick backstory on myself and kind of how I got here, just so they can kind of see where we kind of came from. So I play the drums. I'm sorry, Flute 360 people. Thank you so much for inviting me into your space, but I play the drums. I'm a drummer, and my girlfriend is actually a pianist. She's a piano teacher. So I really appreciate you letting us into your world for just a moment to be able to share these teachings and these ideas with you. So for that, I am eternally grateful. So the way that this kind of started is my girlfriend started her piano studio about 9 years ago now, maybe around 8-9 years ago. And, I wanted to, when we first started, we started out of, her parents' living room. And I wanted to be able to help her any way that I could. I wanted to be able to support her. So I said to myself, well, I don't know how to play piano. I can't teach piano. But what I can do is I can learn the marketing and I can learn the website part of it. So I was able to I said, if I could take that off of your plate, that would free up, your mind and your mental to only really focus on the parent focused part and the teaching part, the part that I had no idea about. And I have always loved building things and kind of tinkering and figuring things out. So for the past 9 years, that's all I've been doing is tinkering on websites, figuring things out. And that's specifically what I've been doing. And over that course of time, over that 9 years, I've seen other teachers in groups asking for website help. So I would, very casually say, okay, well, this is what was working for us and our studio. Let me make a quick video kind of showing you the things that I kind of learned. So some were able to work with that information and some were not. And the ones that were not able to work with that information was because the website that they had was too complicated. Maybe they were on a platform that was too hard for them to use, or maybe they just didn't understand the ins and outs of actually designing a website and taking what I said and putting that into action, which is fast forward to where we are now. We are no longer in her parents' living room. We have now moved to a brick and mortar store. So there were, many micro steps that kind of migrated from where we were to where we are. So we're in a brick and mortar store now, and we have our own storefront. And now I have a company that helps private music teachers build websites that are student attracting. Our motto is that we want to help you turn strangers into students. And we do that by one of two ways. We have music teacher specific blueprints that you can start building your website on, as well as a powerful, easy to use platform that you can use to build that website. So that's my quick, how we kind of got here story.
I love that. Thank you. Sometimes I get off to the races and I'm like, all right, I'm going to pick my guest brain and we're just go. But thank you for giving us that backstory.
You're so welcome.
Yeah. So it sounds like you've learned a lot in those 9 years about technology and building and copy, right? So when you work with these musicians and bringing strangers to clients or strangers into students,
yes,
what are some of the biggest things that you see among your clients in regards to pain points? Is it conversion of the copy? Are you always seeing, I'm saying always very loosely, are you always seeing music students or music teachers specifically having a hard time with marketing themselves? What is the thing? What's the hang up that you see among music teachers?
So, the biggest pain points, the most common mistakes that I see for teachers would be, if it's not that the platform that they're on is super complicated, that is actually a big pain point that I see for teachers, is that they're not really sure how to use the technology that they're on to its fullest, to its maximum capacity, right? So they might be too intimidated to click that button because they don't want to break their website. They might have had somebody or a friend or family member or maybe a designer set up a website for them that might be on a platform that is a little too difficult for them, right? So that would be like the biggest thing. In terms of on the website, once we get past that, a couple of common mistakes that I see is that teachers really want to focus on their credentials, right? They really want to focus on, well, if I went to so-and-so place, or if I went to so-and-so school, or look how many people that I have taught, that's focusing on the credentials. And what you really want to do is you want to balance your credentials with your personality and your teaching style, right? So you want to show what you're able to do rather than tell about the experience that you have. So that would be, one thing. Another pain point that I see often, and we kind of talked about this previously, would be having sort of a generic website copy. Having copy that kind of isn't about your personality or about you, or it's too, I guess, stuffy, I would use the word. Now, I think that in 2024, your copy should be very conversational, just how you speak. Because again, in this episode, we're really talking about how a Flute 360 listener can have their personality shine through and how they can connect to the visitors. And having generic website copy will kind of kill that connection. So you want to use your authentic voice. And at the end of the day, think about what the visitor is coming to your website to kind of see. So you can share specific stories with them. You can share examples, and you can really speak to them as you would. So you don't really want to write things like, at so-and-so Music Academy, we really strive for excellence in every academic pursuit that our students have tried to achieve. So you take something like that, which might be very stuffy. And I think that we got to that place because teachers think that to look professional, you need to write professionally. And I did that in quotes. You need to write professionally. But if you wrote something that's grounded and speaking to the other person who is a parent, you might say something like, we really value your child and what they have going on. So we really look to teach lessons in a way that aligns with what you're looking for your child to achieve, whether that might be having your child learn piano because that's initially what mine goes to.
No, go for it.
So whether that be
side note, a good 30% of listeners on this show aren't even flutists. So go for it. We have saxophonists, we have harpists.
Sweet.
They somehow found a flute podcast, and I'm all for it.
All right. So welcome everyone and all. So, so it might be, that we take your child on a piano journey that connects with them. So speaking directly to them instead of over them, I think would be a real way to kind of connect with that person. Because when a person's coming to your website, they're looking for themselves. What they're thinking about is, do you understand my child? Can you help them achieve what they want to achieve? And can you help them get to where I want them to get to? Because honestly, most parents want their child to develop the skills as that your instrument will teach them as a byproduct, right? So playing flute, playing saxophone, playing clarinet, playing any instrument, you absolutely do get that initial skill, which is learning how to play that instrument. But there are other skills that we as musicians know wholeheartedly. That confidence of standing on stage, that tenacity of never giving up when that difficult passage or that difficult measure that your hands just won't allow you to play, but you come back to it. So these are things that we're teaching students each and every day that as a byproduct of just learning an instrument that parents love. So potentially you can speak to some of those things on your site also. So we help your child build confidence through flute might be an example of verbiage that you might be able to use.
Yeah. What I'm hearing you say is just, beefing up their communicative style and their presence and that stage presence and building relationships and interacting with the student teacher and bringing that into the world to do team building, projects, things like that. It trickles and the ripple effect is huge of the skills that they learn in the music lessons. I love that. And what you said was genius, Demitris. You said talking to them and not over them. That right there, I just want to highlight, bold, and italicize. It was so smart because at the end of the day, you're right. How will the family? How will the student, how will the parents see the transformation in that student? And when you are painting this picture of talking to them and not over them, you're right. A lot of times, and I think that this could be, and correct me if I'm wrong, there's probably a lot of different factors that contribute to this. But we, in this, especially in the classical music world, we're taught, in academia, this is how you form your performer bio. This is how you put together your CV. And it is stuffy. And that's okay, because in that world, it's a different language, it's a different presence. But when you come over here and do business and your entrepreneurial world, and you're showing up as a CEO and you're showing up as that CMO, the language is significantly different than academia. Correct. And so we bring, I think, a piece of academia into our flute studio because we don't know any better, and you don't know what you don't know. Right. And so what ends up happening is that talking over them does feel stuffy, because now you could be leading a little too much with, well, I studied abroad and I won these international competitions. And when you're painting that picture for me, I imagine myself going into a restaurant and being greeted by the hostess. And the hostess goes, well, this is a 5-star Michelin restaurant. And the chef has studied with only the creme de la creme in Paris. And you're so fortunate to be sitting down in our restaurant. And I'm imagining this hypothetical scenario where I'm talking to this hostess and I'm telling her, yeah, girl, that's great and all. I'm starving. Give me some food. That's the impact that I need. That's the transformation I need. I need my belly full. I could care less right now if your chef only studied in Paris for 20 years. Is that kind of along the lines of what you're painting?
100%. And you said it perfectly. You want food because you want to be nourished. And that's what we want to do with people who are coming into our website. We want them to have that food. We want them to be nourished with the experience that their child will be getting. Because just like I spoke about earlier, your website is not about you. It's about the person. Just like that email or that digital door that we were knocking on is not about you. It's about the person who is going to be interacting with that piece of content. So I do want to give your listeners a little tidbit of information and just a little thing that I tend to do, and I have my members do as well, is one of the things is that if you have a piece of content that is on your website, because many people right now might have a website and they are trying to see how can I improve that, right? So if you were to take any section on your website, let's go with your about section, because that's kind of how we're speaking now. If you take that about section and you were to paste it and you were to print it out on a piece of paper, right? And it says, about Heidi and whatever that is written there. If you can imagine that you take that piece of paper and now you have a parent in front of you and you are talking to them about you and the things that you have been through, and you're reading off that piece of paper, is that how you would normally say it? Is that how you would normally say it when you're talking to that parent? Would you say, I'm going to use the Paris example, maybe it's true or maybe it's not. I studied flute in Paris and I had the most amazing teacher. His name was Jacques Cousteau or something like that.
Nice.
You wouldn't really, thank you. You really wouldn't talk like that. You would say something like, and imagine it's just a piece of paper now, you would say something like, I took lessons at so-and-so school. Lessons were difficult. I even maybe thought about quitting a few times because it was hard, but I actually, persevered through it because I saw value in it. I really wanted to learn. That's how you would speak to this person. So now imagine you take how you speak to this person and you put that onto your website, and now they're reading on your website and they're saying, I'm Heidi. Truth be told, I thought about quitting flute 3 times, but
more than 3.
Okay, exactly right. I thought about quitting flute a lot of times because it was difficult and I couldn't get my fingers to do what I wanted them to do, but I stuck with it. And it's been one of the most rewarding things that I could have ever done. I'm pretty sure that when your child comes into lessons, they're going to want to quit too. But at Flute 360, we really want to teach our kids how to have confidence and have the tenacity to stick with things even when it gets hard, because in life, things will get hard and we want them to stick with that also. So imagine your copy spoke like that on your website and not this uptight kind of speak. It would connect a lot more is what I'm trying to get at.
Heck Yes. Oh my gosh. I'm over here like nodding my head and giving Demitris all of these like crazy facial expressions only because like you are nailing it right on the head. Yes. Oh my gosh. I'm thinking like the verbiage that I would tell that parent. It was such a good activity that you painted out so beautifully. And I can imagine me telling that parent, oh, studying with Jacques, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah,
That
Jacques something.
it was life-changing. And I got to be, in a new culture and learn a new language and make new friends. And I want your kiddo to have an experience of making friends in the studio, etc. And so you're dead right. And at the end of the day, like too, this is something that I share with my Flute 3-6 years as they're looking for students is, especially if they are 18 or younger, the parents are the ones who are going to be writing the check. They're the ones who are going to be swiping the card.
Yes.
So being in a relationship with like Facebook mommy groups or Facebook daddy groups and getting to know the community from teacher to parent is really important. Do you agree with that? And do you want to add to that?
You're 100% correct. It is important for you to be able to connect with these parents. You currently have, and I'm going to make a big assumption here, that you have some students in your studio already. And even if you have none, you can speak to these parents who are already in your studio and you can ask them, what is it that you were looking for when you came to my website? Were you looking for if I had the best rates? Were you looking to see if I was able to teach your child something? So you need to see what their pain points are. What are their worries? What are the questions that they're asking themselves in their brain when they come to your website? And questions might be something like, is this going to work for my child? My child has special circumstances, or they might be special needs. Or another question might be, and here's a big question that I answer on my websites that parents ask, but they will never ask you directly. And this is a big one. And the question is, am I sending my child somewhere safe? That is a huge question because maybe you are teaching out of your house and you know that you're a safe place, but they don't know that, right? So these are questions that you can answer. The way that we answer it on our website for us is we say, and this might not be the same for everybody because we have a brick and mortar and we have a big bayfront window that is facing out to the street. So we say things like Sarah is the only teacher, so there are no other teachers. I need a couple of caveats. So we say, our teacher has went through a background check and we will provide that for anybody who asks. Just email us at xyz@studio.com and we'll send that over to you. Our studio has a big bayfront window in the front, so parents can view the lessons from the street if they chose to. There are multiple students in the class. So that puts their mind at ease that they're sending their child somewhere safe. So maybe you don't have the big bayfront window, but potentially you can offer that parent a background check. Now, honestly, 0 parents have reached out and asked us to get that background check, but just us addressing that up front and us being willing to offer that sets them at ease because they're thinking at least they're willing to talk about this. At least they're willing to be transparent, open, and honest with me. So if they're able to be open, transparent, and honest about this, then I'm going to assume that they'll be open, honest, and transparent about other things as well.
I love that. Yes. Oh my goodness. Yes. And even, a solution could be like for the first few lessons, obviously if the teacher and the parent are comfortable with this, but like, because it is a private lesson and you don't want parents always breathing down your neck while you're trying to teach. But maybe for the first few lessons, you can sit in on a lesson and see that the dynamic and the chemistry between student and teacher is in alignment with you and your values as a family. And so, there's a lot of creative ways in which you can approach those concerns that parents may have. I love that. Yes. And what I hear from that too is just you as the studio teacher, you're being proactive. You're getting ahead of it and showing like, hey, I know what's up. I know what's going on in your mind. I've been doing this for 15, 20 years, and let me put you at ease. I absolutely love that. Very cool. So going back to this magnetic presence and showing up as a studio teacher with that authenticity, I know we covered a lot already, just the copy and how you talk, how you show up on your website. And I'm guessing you would advocate for everything that you've said thus far to also you can bring into your social media posts and newsletters and things like that, correct?
100%, because you want it to carry throughout the entire experience that they have with you. So using your example, if you say, oh, shoot, in a one-off email and you never say it again, then they may not feel that is an authentic thing that you have used all the time. But if they see whatever the colloquialism or whatever the vernacular that you use, if they see that come in often, then they'll start to get a sense of who you are. And they'll feel more connected to you because they probably have some things that they say all the time also. So even in that email that you have written out, if you can be vulnerable in your copy, just as how I spoke before about, when I kind of mentioned about you potentially wanting to quit flute lessons, I say, I wanted to quit flute lessons a bunch of times. That's being vulnerable. So just as you can write the email to somebody, you can be vulnerable, you can be honest. You can say, hey, so-and-so music store owner, you can say something like, oh, shoot, you're probably thinking that here comes another email from Heidi again. And you just be transparent like that and just speak to them. You're probably thinking, oh, shoot, here comes the email from Heidi again, asking me if I can have flute lessons at, my store. And you're probably going to say no, but I couldn't not send this email because I don't get what I don't ask for. So I'm sending it one more time and maybe we can have a conversation. Just being transparent and vulnerable will take you a long way because so many people online are trying to be fake versions of themselves. That's why authenticity really connects and really comes through. So if you could just be yourself and be just a little bit vulnerable and just tell them, hey, I'm a little nervous to send this email because I don't know if you're going to respond to it or not. But I said, oh, shoot, let me try it again. And let me just try it anyway.
Yeah.
Just be you. Just be you. That's really it.
Kind of, I say this a lot to I have a sister company called Red House Productions and I help creatives start up their own podcast.
Nice.
And when you have podcast hosts going into a world that they are unfamiliar with, you kind of coach them with, situations that they don't know what to do in said scenario. So in case in point, a difficult question was asked or something was said and they're like, oh, I don't know how to answer that. You can practice it. And that's exactly what you're saying. You can say out loud the uncomfortable thing. You can literally say out loud the elephant in the room.
Yes.
And I have said that a million times as being a guest on a show, just even with you today. I'm like, oh my gosh, I cannot speak today. And you're showing me grace and kindness. And it's okay because we're having a live conversation and things are going to show up. So you can say and preface out loud, I don't know how to answer that question. Can you be a little bit more clear? Or you know what, just, Demitris, today was a little funky. I've got cats going all over the place on my desk for today's talk. Please be gentle with me because today is just wild. And just putting that out there, I think we're afraid sometimes, and I'm being vulnerable right now, but I think sometimes we as humans have a hard time showing that vulnerable side of going, wait, it's a podcast talk with Demitris and Heidi. It should be formal. Not that I see it formal because now, you're my new friend, but people think that they have to appear and show up in a certain way. And yes, of course, we want to be professional. At the end of the day, we want to do our best. I get that. But also we're human too. Life is going to get messy, and the day is going to get messy and things are going to get all, wound up and crazy. Like a week ago, my technology was not working at all. And I was like, if Demitris comes on right now, he's not going to see me. My microphone's not syncing up because of the software update. We need to reschedule this. That happens. Life happens. So anyways, my point in all of that is show up and say that messy thing out loud. Say hey, you know what? I'm kind of wondering what you said with that email, to the students and inviting certain families into your studio. If I don't ask, I've been thinking about you and enrolling you into my studio, for the last couple of weeks. And I know Jane or Joe would be a perfect fit. And I really don't want to ask again, but I want to ask again because I want you to know that Jane or Joe is so special. And I think that we could really hit it off and I can help your student with that music transformation. And I'm going to ask a third time because why not? Do you know what I mean? And so anyways, all that was to say was to paint a picture of sometimes you can preface and say, I don't know how to answer that, or I don't know what to do. And people are going to be, what I found as a podcast host for 6 years is people are so generous. They are so kind with their time, with their expertise, and we're in this together. We're all in this together. You know what I mean? And so at the end of the day, we're humans and we're trying to help each other level up to the next tier.
That's a perfect way to say the messy thing, because like you said, people are going to be generous. They are going to be more than likely kind to you. And writing it in that way, like saying the messy thing, makes it easier for you to write copy because it's not going to be this big, scary thing. You're just going to write how you feel, write like you talk, and then you don't have to write like somebody else. You don't have to try to write and make it professional, quote unquote. You could just write it how you are. And it's easy. It'll be easier for you to write it that way. And it will come off in a more vulnerable, authentic, connective way. And they will feel you. And that's how I wrote the email to you. And I'm glad that I did it that way because that's how you felt me. So as your listeners can see, is I was able to write in that way and a way that got me here on this podcast. So if you write that way, who knows what doors might open? Who knows what stages you might be on? Who knows what students will now be able to enter through your studio? Because honestly, really what I am wanting to do is I really want to, well, my business name, I'm going to give you a little backstory too. My business is called Provide Impact. That's the big over umbrella kind of company name. And it's called Provide Impact is because I want to be able to provide more impact to music teachers so they can then take that and then be able to provide more impact to more students. So by being vulnerable, you will be able to provide more impact to students because you will be able to get in front of more of them, period.
Boom. I love that. That's fantastic. So I know we talked a lot about copy and showing up in your authentic way. Is there another nugget as we wrap up this conversation? Is there one last nugget that you want to share with the listeners in terms of like letting your very specific, unique teaching style coming through the podcast, your platform, your YouTube channel to bring people like a moth to a flame to the services that you want to provide them? So like, again, showing up, being authentic and showing, your vernacular and how you speak and your style and your vibe, right? That's all one way. Is there any other tips in terms of showing your teaching style so that way students can really connect and go, ooh, I want to work with Bob or Billy because I really like their teaching style?
Great question. So the way that I would suggest to do that, and this might be in the comfort zone for some people, this might be out of the comfort zone for some people, but I would make a video. I would make a video of you, the teacher, and it doesn't have to, now when people hear video, they might be thinking, I need all this technology now. I need all these things. If you have a smartphone, even if you don't have a smartphone, somebody in your life has a smartphone with a camera on it that you can use to shoot this video of yourself. It can be as simple as holding it selfie style, you holding your phone and you speaking to it. You can prop up some books and have it be on the books and you can have it like that. But what you want to do is you want to think about your teaching philosophy. First, you need to get clear on that. Like, what do you believe in, right? What do you believe as a music educator? How do you approach different learners? What are your unique teaching methods? So for us, we do things a little bit differently. I can only speak to us and our studio right now because that's what's in my head. We do lab style lessons, right? And that's our unique mechanism. That's our differentiator. That's our little different thing that we do. We do lab style lessons. So for you as a flutist, you might do something a little bit different. You might have a special way of teaching. You might have a special method that you use. So when you're coming and you're now trying to transport this into a video, what you want to do is you thought about this method because you saw that there might have been something wrong or different that you wanted to move away from, right? So let's say, for instance, like you can even be, let's say that you are a pop flute studio. You only teach in, pop kind of current day songs because you saw that when you were growing up, you were only taught to play classical songs and you found that to be a little bit too intimidating and maybe a little bit stuffy. Then on video, you can say something like, you can have that vulnerable moment. I used to play flute. I used to play classical flute And I thought it was a little bit stuffy. I was never really able to kind of play the things that I wanted to play, which is why at our studio, we really have the kids by their, fourth lesson, pick a song that they want to play. Maybe it's an easier song, but we want them to make music as quickly as possible. The things that got them interested in playing the flute may not be the classical piece from 100 to 200 to 300 years ago. It might be that new Shawn Mendes song that they have heard that they want to be able to play now. So we want to be able to make music accessible to them. The way that we do that is through our pop-only repertoire. We do that through having jamborees. So that's how you're able to make that distinction. And mind you, this is on video now. So video, you're already connecting with the person even more. So think about what you believe in and your philosophy and your teaching philosophy. And now juxtapose that to what you are moving away from. You're moving away from something. So speak on those two things and then just tie it into a ribbon and point it back to their child. Or maybe you have an adult student, point it back to what your adult student would be able to do now. And that would be a way that they can authentically show their lessons through video to have it connect the most and also to stand out. Because if you think about it, I'm willing to bet that if you open up all of the flute, all of the harp studios, all of the piano studios, if you open up those websites in your local area, I would bet that almost none of them have a video of the teacher talking to the camera who is really talking to the visitor about their lessons. And if you are that teacher who has that, you will stand out that much more for it.
Boom. Yes, that right there is like $1,000 coaching tip right there, y'all. So take it and run with it. I love that. And I have a lot of work to do on my own copy on my website. So thank you for inspiring me. Oh, shoot. We have covered a lot, Demitris, and I so appreciate with cattails and camels and everything. It's one of those days, I'm telling you. Mm-hmm. But we're wrapping up the year with such a powerful episode with this specific talk. And you're the last episode for 2024. And I'm just blown away by the value that you're giving these people in a very messy kitty day, right? Yeah. And here we are. We're still, rolling with the punches. But thank you so much for your generosity. And thank you so much for your coaching. I felt like I got coached during that hour. So I really appreciate that. And everything you said was just very kind and very professional, but it kind of, in a way, also where it challenges us in this very positive way. Like, hey, guys, you may be doing this, but I challenge you to try this. And, the results speak for themselves. And when you said, the tunes and the pop tunes that your kiddos may really like, I remember as a early flute teacher, when I was starting out my studio in 2009, from 09 to 15, I had probably 50 to 60 flute students. And I can't tell you about how many students from that lot ended up taking with me, because in that meet and greet with Heidi, I played Super Mario Brothers theme tune or the anime songs that they liked, or you know what I mean? And that's what, drew them from being a moth to a flame of going, oh my gosh, that's so cool. I want to learn that tune too. So what I hear in all of this too is, Demitris, and I swear I won't go down this rabbit hole because I want to respect your time. But, what we do as teachers and what we do as artists, we can get really creative with our sound choices, our tone colors, our articulation choices, how we shape a phrase. And one of the soapboxes that I'm on with this show is, hey guys, take those creative elements that you have with your flute tone and how you produce beautiful music, and take those same skills and the way you think and bring them over into the business world. How creative can you get with your copy? How creative can you get with those conversations that you have with parent to teacher? How creative can you get with dangling, and I'm saying this with all the love, dangling that carrot and getting them to nibble just a little bite of that carrot to say, I want more, right? And it's all interconnected. And what can we do as creative artists? Yes, in the studio and in the practice sessions, but how can we bring that over into the business world so that way we can thrive also financially?
I couldn't have said that better myself. You just as colorful as your flute playing is and just as colorful as your song selection is, so should be the copy if it's going to be authentic to you. Bring yourself to your work, bring yourself to your copy that you're writing, and you will find that writing copy and speaking to parents and just being transparent and vulnerable will get easier and easier and easier. It might be a skill and a muscle that you may have not exercised or practiced any day, but like I said before, as music teachers and musicians, we have built up tenacity, and we don't stop when things get hard. We just figure out a way to go through it and get to the other end, because at the other end of that hard video that you have to make, at the other end of that hard passage is going to be beautiful music. And I really want you to make beautiful music for your studio and your business as well.
Boom. Yes. Thank you so much, Demitris. You are welcomed on the show anytime. If there's anything you ever need from me, you just say, hey, Heidi, remember that kind offer you gave me in 2024? Seriously, so much knowledge, and not just knowledge from experience. I mean, that's what I love so much too. Like, you told us, like, these are lessons that I learned from 9 years of getting into the weeds, getting into the nitty gritty. And I, as a musicpreneur, I know what that feels like. I know what it feels like to build out your first DIY website and know nothing. But then you learn and you add in layers, and, you fall and you trip, but then you get back up again and you do it again. And so the fact that you've learned this from real life scenarios and real life experience is so cool. But the way, not only did you learn these lessons, but the way that you are packaging it together and articulating it in such a very efficient and beautiful way so people can digest it and hear it and break it down. You're laying it out so beautifully that it's like, whoa, I want to grow up and learn how to communicate like Demitris one day. So you raised the bar for me today. So I'm going to take that and go, all right, well, I've got some goals now for 2025. Oh, shoot. Where can people find you?
Sure. So I want to lead with value for your listeners. And what I've actually put together is I put together a website quick tip checklist that your listeners can actually download and use to improve their website. Because yes, we have went through a bunch of things, but I want these things to be actionable. I want them to be effective, and I want them to be helpful for them. So your visitors can actually go to provideimpact.com/checklist, download this PDF, start making the changes, and then in the emails that follow, I will give you my social media. You can connect with me through email that way, and then we can start having a conversation that way.
I love it. Oh my goodness. Thank you. Thank you so much. Flute 360 listeners, this is your moment. If you've been waiting for the perfect opportunity to transform your flute playing and career, the time is now. The Flute 360 Accelerator program is officially open, and our next live session is happening soon. Saturday, January 25th, 2025, from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Central Time, featuring the amazing Liz Walker as our guest. This isn't just another program. It's your gateway to real growth and community. Imagine leaving toxic environments, finding your unique flute voice, confidently showing up online, and making empowered music choices for yourself and your students. These are just a few of the incredible transformations our members have experienced. With access to masterclasses, masterminds, book clubs, and one-on-one coaching, you'll gain the tools and support to turn your goals into reality. Don't let this opportunity pass you by. Spaces are filling up fast. Head to the link in the show notes and enroll today. Let 2025 be the year you finally step into your full potential. We can't wait to see you there. Let's talk about flute.